The Atlanta Braves have gotten some pleasant surprises early on, but with some injured players close to coming back, who might be in danger of losing their roster spot? I'll answer that question and many more on today's Mailbag episode of Locked On Braves.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. During the NCAA tournament, FanDuel is offering $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. It is our weekly mailbag episode as we are now a week into the regular season. Got a wide range of questions, as always, to answer on today's episode. About 20 questions to get to. A lot of them having to do with some early surprises, early disappointments, and who could be getting cut here pretty soon with some injured players returning. And we'll start right there with a question from Texas Breeze 36, who says, what's been your favorite thing to see from the Braves after a 5-2 start? Also, when Kim and Murphy come back, who would you drop to make room? I think the thing that my favorite thing so far from the Atlanta Braves is just, I know this is going to be boring to say, but the depth. We're seeing the depth paying off. They've been able to survive this first week without the thing we thought that they would need to carry them early on, and that's the big three in the lineup. They haven't necessarily produced outside of Matt Olson having a big game as everybody did on Thursday night. But I think that's been my favorite thing so far, to see that the depth of this team has really made a difference already early on. And then when Sean Murphy comes back, I think it's Kyle Farmer who gets let go, unless you feel that he can handle shortstop. Because I think the only reason I hang on to Mateo right now is just to have insurance at the shortstop position. You could let Jonah Heim go. I think they want to carry a third catcher while Murphy eases his way back into things. And it's not like you really utilized Kyle Farmer early on. So I think Farmer might actually be the one to get let go. And then when Ha-Seong Kim returns, it's Mateo who gets let go. Hopefully both of those guys are clear and you're able to keep them in the organization, as they are, very solid depth pieces. But I think those are the ones to let go. I think the bottom line for me here, though, and we're going to have more of this, some other questions around it, you got to keep Dominic Smith. I think he's been one of the best surprises. Again, we'll talk about that more later. But I think you got to keep Dominic Smith. Hostile General says, I know it's early, but do you think Dom Smith has cemented himself as the guy to stay out of Mateo, Smith, Farmer once Murphy and Kim come back? I do. As I was kind of alluding to there a second ago, the at-bats from Dominic Smith have just been so good. He gives you a professional at-bat from the left side, and I just feel like when he's up there, he's going to give you a good at-bat, and so far, he's been producing. Caleb Cook says, do you think the Braves will carry three catchers once Murphy returns? Who will get more DH at-bats, Baldwin or Murphy? Go Braves. Again, kind of going along, all these questions are kind of along the same line of thinking here. I think Dominic Smith has messed up these plans a little bit. I think originally the plan was to carry three catchers. And as I said a minute ago, I think they might still do that, and Kyle Farmer might be the one who gets the axe, but you have to keep Dominic Smith. I think eventually Drake Baldwin will get more DH at bats, but it might take a little while as Murphy gets ramped up. But if Sean Murphy comes back and he is still a great defender behind the plate, you have to keep Drake Baldwin's bat in the lineup. And so for that reason, I think you start Murphy behind the plate more often because of his defensive ability. Not that Baldwin's bad there, and he's definitely getting better there, but more so to keep Drake Baldwin's in the bat in the lineup every day. I think he will ultimately get the most DH at bats this season for the Atlanta Braves. Colin Moses says, despite Ronald, Riley, and Olson until last night, early struggles, does the bottom of the order producing give you hope for the ceiling of this offense? And absolutely yes. That's definitely been one of the better surprises and a big reason why they've been able to succeed without the big three doing much early on in the season. And you have to give credit to Alex Anthopoulos for building out that depth. You're talking about guys like Mike Yastrzemski, Mauricio Dubon, Dominic Smith. They've all had some big contributions early on. In fact, you look at the 7th, 8th, and 9th spots in the batting order for the Atlanta Braves. All three of those spots are top 10 in OPS for that specific spot. So the 7th spot in the order, top 10 in OPS, 8th, 9th. All 3 of those spots are top 10 in OPS in baseball right now. That's making a huge difference when the bottom of your lineup is able to produce like that, especially when the guys at the top aren't getting it done. And that was the main goal this offseason for Alex Anthopoulos. We talked about it a ton. And while I still maintain I would have loved for him to go out and get another big bat, one thing that we have to give him credit for is building out that depth, and we're seeing it pay off in the first week of the season. Those guys at the bottom of the order producing. Now, they're not going to do that all the time, and certainly you're going to need Acuña, Olson, and Riley to step up, but it's good to see that even when those guys are down, and obviously Drake Baldwin doing his thing at the top has helped, but even when those 3 are down, to be able to see them continue to produce because of that depth and the guys at the bottom of the order, that is certainly huge and does help raise the ceiling of what this offense can be when those guys eventually do get going at the top. Next question from Calvin Finner, who says, with how great Dubon has looked defensively, it definitely gives Ha-Seong Kim a higher bar to clear. Do you think there's a world where their roles flip and Ha-Seong Kim becomes a utility piece? At $20 million, Kim is going to be given every chance to lose the job. But I certainly could see it becoming more of a timeshare than maybe we initially thought. Again, all of this is 1 week, but it's what we have to go on. Especially early on when Kim coming back from an injury for a 2nd straight year, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not necessarily a straight up platoon or like an every other day thing. I still think Kim gets the majority of the starts once he returns, but I could see you giving Kim, a day or 2 off a week, especially if you line it up whenever the Braves are going up against the lefty starter, putting Dubon in the lineup. I still think Dubon's going to start 2 or 3 times a week, whether that's at shortstop or somewhere else. I do think you're going to see Dubon still get a good bit of playing time. Like I said, especially when the lefty starters on the mound, you could see him out in the outfield for Mike Yastrzemski with a lefty starter. But to your point, Kim's going to need to come back and produce right away because Dubon has looked really good. Brian Snitker-Rett says, Dubon versus Ozzie at short when Kim gets back. I'm not sure I understand the question the way that it's phrased, but following up on the last question, if Ozzie were to really struggle into midseason, as I've said before, I think Ozzie's going to get a very long leash. But if you get to midseason and he's still struggling or gets injured, I think you could use Dubon at shortstop and Kim at second base. And I think that would be a pretty, solid up the middle tandem there. So again, that's just speaking to more of this depth. You've already lost Kim. You've been able to insert Dubon and he's delivered for you. If you were to lose, he comes back and you lose Ozzie, or Ozzie is just becoming unplayable, not saying that's going to happen, then yeah, you have another scenario there too, where you could put Dubon at short and Kim at second base and feel pretty good about it. Big Dog Fan 73, when Strider comes back, if all 5 of Sale, Strider, Lopez, Holmes, and Elder stay healthy and all being effective starters, like that's a big ask, what do you do with Fuentes? He's obviously one of our best pitchers and needs to be in the bigs. Do we send him back to the pen? Do we send Holmes to the pen? My solution would be to go to a 6-man rotation, at least for a little while. You're going to need to manage the innings on basically all of your starters other than Bryce Elder. This stuff normally works itself out. Like I said, it feels like a big ask to have 6 starters who are healthy and all throwing well. That's a big ask right now for this Atlanta Braves rotation, but at least for the moment, they are throwing the ball well. And if Strider comes back, he's going to be in the rotation. If Fuentes goes down, gets stretched out, he's dominating AAA, you got to give him another chance. Then I think you have to call him up and put him in the rotation. But yes, I do think Holmes would be the one to go to the pen if Fuentes forces his way into the rotation after Strider is back. All right, we got a lot more questions to get to on today's episode of Locked On Braves. We'll get into some more of those here next. The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets. It's nonstop action from tip to final cutdown. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. You get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want, game picks, futures, or even same-game parlays for bigger potential payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new, different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. And now we're down to the final four, so the intensity is heating up. We also have the start of the Major League Baseball season. The Braves are still sitting at plus 2,000 to win the World Series with the third best odds of winning the division. But Ronald has the third best odds of winning the NL MVP, and Chris Sale the fourth best odds at winning another NL Cy Young. You can check all those odds out at FanDuel.com. Also, please visit FanDuel.com/play with a plan for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action today. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Baseball is finally back, and to celebrate, I'm giving you a full month of the Everydayer Club for free. Go to LockedOnBraves.supercast.com and use code FINALLY. You'll unlock every episode ad-free and get access to our private listener group chat. Tap the link in the show notes and use code FINALLY to claim your first free month. Well, let's jump back into our questions here. Next one from Hostile General, who says, how confident are you, given what we've seen, that the offense can keep us competitive, if not the top of the division, until our pitching gets a little healthier? It's hard to say this after a 17-run game, but I wouldn't say I'm completely confident that they can do that just yet. I need to see Olson, Acuña, and O'Reilly get going. Now, I do feel confident that Olson and Acuña will get going. And in fact, I thought we saw signs of that on Thursday night. I talked about this on the postcast. I actually talked about it on yesterday's podcast. What I needed to see Olson start lifting the baseball. I need to see Acuña get on the fastball. We saw both of those things in the game on Thursday. So hopefully that is a sign that both of those guys are going to get going. On Riley, I still need to see more. But as I talked about in the first segment, seeing what the rest of the lineup has been able to do without those three does give me confidence that they can survive. And because, like I said, I do think Olson and Acuña will get there. Hopeful that Riley will. Question still out on Ozzie and Michael Harris at this point. So I'm not completely confident. I guess you could say I feel okay. I'm still maybe a little bit lukewarm on this offense right now. Again, it's crazy to say that after a 17-run game, but I really need to see those guys at the top get going. I don't know how much you can depend on Dominic Smith, Mauricio Dubon to carry you at the bottom of the lineup. They're doing a great job right now while those top three aren't getting it done. But I think overall, especially when you start playing better competition, you're going to need your stars at the top to produce. Another one from Hostile General, who says, are you content with what you've seen from the pitching staff so far? I think they've looked pretty decent. I know I've sent a lot of questions. You can just answer one if time is tight. No problem. No problem there, Hostile General. The pitching staff's been one of the best and biggest surprises early on. So yes, I've been more than content with what we've seen from them. It was obviously the biggest worry coming into the season was the starting rotation, and they've gone above and beyond what I think many of us could have imagined happen. So yes, I'm more than content with what I've seen from the pitching staff. Caleb Calhoun says, what has impressed you the most so far about the team, staff? Besides base running, what are you most unimpressed with? As I just said, I think the pitching staff, mainly the starting rotation, has been the biggest surprise and most impressive to start the season. You could add the defense to that. The defense has definitely played a big role in that. I thought early on it would have to be the offense that carries this team, and I still believe that's going to be the case, but the pitching and defense has more than done their part early on. I mean, second best ERA in baseball right now. I don't think anybody would have predicted that coming into the season. Early on, 7 games, but the pitching staff has delivered in a big way for the Atlanta Braves here in the early part of the schedule. Austin Riley, outside of base running, Austin Riley has been the most unimpressive to me so far. We'll get to that more in a second. Kathy G says, week 1, who has been the biggest positive surprise? Who has been the biggest disappointment? Acknowledging that it'll change. Thanks. Got to bring it back to Dom Smith. Other than the pitching staff that I just said, I think when you look at the best positive surprises, I wasn't sure what we would get out of Dom Smith. and he's delivered. Obviously, he had a good spring. He won the job. I wasn't sure how much he would play. I wasn't sure, like I said, what you were going to get from him at all. Maybe it's a hot stretch, but remember, he had a pretty good 2025 as well. So we'll see where it goes from here. But Dominic Smith has been one of the best and biggest surprises, I think, for the Atlanta Braves early on. And it's just, again, I feel very confident when Dominic Smith is at the plate right now. He's one of the guys that comes to bat for the Atlanta Braves. And I feel like, okay, you're about to get a quality at bat out of somebody. So he's definitely been a bright surprise, or big bright surprise. I don't know, whatever. You get the point there. As far as the biggest disappointment, I do think it is Austin Riley, only because his spring was so good. And I was so optimistic going into the season because he's finally healthy. He talked about the hip slide that was throwing off his timing, which made sense with some of the swings that we were seeing both on four seamers and sliders. And he felt like if those two things got corrected, that you would see the good version of Austin Riley. It's 1 week, I know, but it's looked really, really bad for me. And yes, he's hitting 250 with a 357 on base, and those numbers are good. But it's a 292 slugging percentage. He's a guy that normally slugs, when he's good, over 500. He's slugging under 300 right now. Again, 7-game sample size, I get that, but it's all we have to go on. A 202 expected batting average would tell you he's been pretty lucky. A 40.7% whiff rate and just an 87.3 mile per hour average exit velocity. That's not Austin Riley like. And again, just visually, the eyeball test, the at-bats look pretty bad. I mean, he looks completely lost at the plate right now. Could he change and turn that around? Yes, certainly. It is 7 games, but you're just talking about what we've seen in those 7 games. What's been the biggest disappointment for me? It's clearly Austin Riley, just because I was expecting so much. I was hoping a healthy Austin Riley, fixing the hip slide issue. What we saw from him in spring training, was hoping it would lead into a good start to the season for him. But the at-bats just don't look good at all for him at the moment. ARIT 1018 says, who's more in danger of not getting it going soon, Ozzie, Harris, or Riley? Oh, man. To be honest, I'm not feeling great about any of them at the moment based on what we've seen. Ozzie doesn't have a single barrel yet this season. For a guy who has to live off power, he hasn't gotten a single barrel so far in 7 games. And he's swinging everything. Now, that is just Ozzie's game. He swings at everything. He's a good bad ball hitter, and we've seen some of that, come through for him. But for Ozzie to not have a single barrel yet gives me a little bit of concern. Michael Harris's plate discipline doesn't look any better than it has in the past, but at least he's making good contact. I mean, when he is making contact, it is very loud. Of course, 2 of those loud contacts came off James McCann on Thursday night. But when he's making contact, it is really good contact. The plate discipline just still doesn't look any better to me. He still hasn't taken a walk, even though there's been some chances for him to take some walks in there. I just talked about Riley, and even the success he's had so far has been somewhat unlucky. And again, or somewhat lucky in just the eyeball test for Riley. Just doesn't look good. He still just looks lost at the plate to me. And Ozzie and MH2 just still kind of look like the same versions of themselves. And that's really all we need them to be. Like, yes, I want to see them make improvements to be even better players. But if Ozzie and Michael Harris can just get back to being who they've been in the past, which is around league average offensively, that's perfectly fine. So I think they've looked like they've looked in the past, the players that they've been in the past, outside of the power for Ozzie, like I said, without him having a barrel yet, they've looked more like the guys that I think they can be, which is just average offensive players. Riley is the one that's most concerning to me, just because you need more than that from him. You need him to be an all-star level player, and he looks far from that at the moment. Calvin Finner says, it's only been a week, but Walt Weiss tactically has eclipsed Snit in my eyes. How would you grade out his management thus far? I suppose as we get pieces back, we will see how he handles bench pieces, pinch hitting. I think he's been great, and that was my big takeaway from the first series of the year. I thought he passed it with flying colors. I can't really think of any in-game strategies, bullpen strategies, or anything like that I've disagreed with. I think, we saw him use Suarez in the 7th inning against the top of the order. I thought that was, really nice to see. I think he's been fantastic. And even some of the decisions that I've questioned, he ended up being right with. Like I thought there was an opportunity in a game for him to pinch hit for Yastrzemski against a lefty. He didn't. And then Yastrzemski came up in the ninth inning in a big spot against a righty and got a hit, and that comeback win the walk-off grand slam. So even some of the decisions from Walt Weiss that I've questioned, he ended up being right on them. So absolutely, he gets an A+ grade so far through the first week of the season. I like, the lineup decisions, although I joked yesterday, maybe Dominic Smith needs to hit leadoff. And I said that jokingly, but maybe Dom Smith does need to move him in the lineup a little bit against righties, maybe at least put him ahead of Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies at the moment. But again, I think he's done a great job with the lineups, with the in-game decisions. It's been a great start for Walt Weiss. All right, we got several more questions to get to on today's episode. We'll get to the rest of them here next. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets change the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had the dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit. Help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about us or heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Thank you so much for joining me on this mailbag episode of Locked On Braves. We'll finish up here with a few more questions. Double AWX says, is there a current Brave that you think can break this record for us? And it shows in a franchise all-time strikeout leader with John Smoltz having 3,011 strikeouts. I would have said Strider has a chance before the injuries. And I'm not going to say that it can never happen, because the game's always evolving and changing, but it's really hard to see someone getting to 3,000 strikeouts in a Braves uniform because A, pitchers don't throw that many innings, and 2, players rarely stick around with the same franchise for that long. John Smoltz spent 20 years, not just pitching, and yes, he had some injuries in there that, cut his season short, but 20 years with the Braves, almost 34,000 innings with the Braves. And only 3 other teams have had a pitcher strike out 3,000 batters in that team's uniform. So, again, never going to say never, but that's one I don't know that we'll ever see somebody break that record. Chastity says, what do you think of the team so far? And are you getting excited for the season with a hint of hesitation like me? I'll always be excited for a new baseball season, whether my team is a World Series favorite or a rebuild, whatever. It's easily the best time of the year for me. So I'm always going to be excited for a new season of Major League Baseball. And I'm just a baseball fan in general. Yes, I love the Braves. They're my number one team, but I'll watch the White Sox play. I don't care. I'll watch baseball whenever and whoever is on. But yes, I am happy with what I've seen from the team so far because I still feel like there is more in the tank. And yet we found ways to win games. I've had some people commenting that I've been too negative. And as I tried to point out on the podcast today, that's only just because I think so highly of this team. And I think that there is still more for them in the tank. I believe they can be even better than what they've been so far. And so, yes, even though I don't think they've played their best all-around baseball yet, outside of Thursday night's, 17-2 win where they hit and pitched, I am very satisfied with what we've seen so far in the early going. And I am happy with what we've seen from this team so far. Dennis says, why was Luke Sennard assigned to FCL? Thanks for your great work. I listen most every day. I'll get Gourov's thoughts on this when we do Monday's prospect episode, but I think they're just sending him down there to let him finish getting ramped up. I believe he's a little bit delayed to begin the year. He threw a lot last season, so I think they're probably just managing his innings a little bit. At least that's what I kind of gathered from Gourov's comments on it, but I'll try to remember to get him to speak to that a little bit more on Monday's episode. Another one from Calvin Fenner, who says, how do you feel about the new City Connect jersey? So, I'm not the biggest jersey guy in the world, not New Jersey, just jerseys, team jerseys. But I thought they looked really clean, especially the hats. I'm probably going to grab one of those hats, but I really do like them. I didn't have any problems with the other ones either, but these just looked really, really clean. Emperor Luke says, who has been your favorite pitcher to watch in the last few years on the Braves and why? This is a tough one, as the Braves have obviously had some really good starting pitchers. Peak Strider was must watch. Spencer Schwellenbach was really fun with his just command and his arsenal of pitches. And then, of course, there's the Cy Young winner and Chris Sale. I think I'm actually going to go with Peak Spencer Strider, though. I mean, like I said, he was must watch when he went out there. Just his ability to dominate a lineup with two pitches, just a high velocity fastball, getting up near 100, a devastating slider. It's why it's really hard to quit a guy like Spencer Strider, just because how good and how dominant and how fun it was to watch him pitch. You want to see him try to get back to that. I'm starting to think we never will see that version of Spencer Strider again, but that version was really, really fun to watch. JWF09 says, where is Ozuna, the guy that looked like Marcell Ozuna and gave us luck? I actually had somebody in the comment section the other day say they knew someone who ran into Ozuna at the game. So I think he's still there. They probably just don't show him on the broadcast as much because Ozuna's obviously not here anymore. Maybe they show him whenever we play the Pirates and see Marcell Ozuna again. But according to my sources, he is still there in attendance. Jamie Jones 9205 says, trade Nacho for pitching. I don't think Nacho's stock is high enough to bring much of a return. I do think Nacho probably does get traded this year. Like if I had to predict one prospect to get traded this season, I do think it's Nacho. I don't know what his place is on this team going forward. If he's not the future, shortstop or second baseman, I just don't know, other than just being a bench utility piece. I don't know what his future is here. And I think it's a Vaughn Grissom situation where he's a fringe, kind of starter 4A type of player. And so maybe you dump him in a trade. Hey, the Vaughn Grissom trade worked out really well. I don't think it'll be anything near that again, but I do think Nacho probably gets traded at some point this season. All right, that is all the questions. Thank you so much for submitting all those in. A lot of great questions as always. Thanks so much for being a part of Locked On Braves and being a part of this episode by sending in those questions. Thanks for tuning in to today's Locked On Braves. We'll be back next week. We'll review the weekend series against the Diamondbacks. Hopefully the Braves come away with a 4-game series win. We'll also have a Monday episode looking at the prospects. We got more prospect games or minor league games happening now. So I'll have Gaurav back to break all of that down. I might not be on the postcast this weekend with Lindsay. I'm going out of town for Easter weekend. Going to try to find a spot where I can record and join some of those shows. If not, Lindsay will have you on the postcast, and I'll be back next week on there as well. So hope you enjoy those games. Hope you all have a great Easter weekend if you're traveling as well. Hope you have safe travels, enjoying time with family. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get all the latest episodes. You can follow me on Twitter at ShortstopBall. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get ad-free episodes plus member-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnBraves.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio for your second listen, go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will talk to you next.